Hello, cuties. In this cup, I have 101 hot takes to react to today. I asked you all on my Discord to give me your hot bookish takes, and you delivered. So we're going through every single one of these today. So buckle up and let's get ready to argue. I made these, they're all in these little slips. I made them over a week ago. I don't remember what's on these. I remember a couple of them. We do have some very polarizing opinions, and we have some that are gonna make me upset eat spaghetti. But this is all in good fun. I want to disclose that. My sass is mine, okay? Please do not get offended by anything that I do say out of this. If we have differing opinions, that is okay, because these are just bookish opinions. They are not life-threatening, and they do not define you as a whole of a person, nor do they define me as a whole of a person. I hope so. I don't know. We'll see what else comes out of this, but just know this is all in good fun. If I give you sass, I appreciated the opinion you've given me. Even if you're awfully wrong, you know. I am an extremely sarcastic person. Please note that. Please note that. Okay. Okay, do we have enough disclosures? I'm very, very sassy. So let's get into it. So our very first hot take is romance, especially contemporary, is not just a 3-star palate cleanser. Oh, I agree wholeheartedly with that one. I have read phenomenal romance books. One of my favorites of all time, Weather Girl, Rachel and Solomon. Oh my God, we got a fat love interest for one. We have great depression representation in that. It's spicy as well if you like the spice. I'm not really into the spice part of it, but it's so fun and so good and has like a lot of contemporary. I think it gets a bad rep because it's like, oh, everything's a happy ever after. That's a guarantee for the reader. Okay, we still go through the journey, and I love contemporary romance. Now, there are bad ones out there for sure, but there's really good ones. Any of the Jen DeLuca stuff, love Jen DeLuca's work. Love it, love it, love it. So, no, it is not a 3-star palate cleanser. It's wonderful as its own. That's why it makes the most money worldwide. That was an easy one. Okay, off to a good start. Emily Henry writes romance. Anyone saying she writes litfic has clearly never read litfic. Oh yeah, she's a romance writer. She has, I think this is where people get confused because, again, just like I was saying before, people think romance is light and fluffy and nothing at all. Emily Henry writes romance, but it has some heavier topics in it. It has some more meaningful topics. That doesn't make it litfic. Litfic is depressing and I hate it, okay? Every litfic person in the chat is like, how dare you? I hate litfic. I'm sorry. I'm already depressed enough in my life. I don't need to get a book to do that for me. Thank you. But yeah, Emily Henry is a romance writer. Who's saying she's a litfic writer? It's romance. Absolutely romance. It just sometimes has heavier themes in it. TBR 0 type of content is frustrating to watch when the YouTuber constantly ends up buying more books anyway, and a year of content brings the TBR from multiple hundred down by maybe 10 books. It's frustrating to know the milestones some of them reach won't last, and they will just go back up, and conveniently they will have endless content to film forever with no real progress or change of habits. I know some are more successful than others. Wow. I understand that frustration. I think, I don't know if it's necessarily coming from a place of like, oh, I'll have endless content. I think there is a true, like, I want to get my TBR down. The problem is more books keep coming out and they sound good and you can't help but add to your TBR. That's why I'll never do a TBR 0 style thing because I always know there's going to be more books coming and my TBR is always going to be changing and evolving and stuff. So I will never say no to putting a book on my TBR. I may never get to it, but there's a chance that I will. So that's why it always makes me kind of sad when people are like, oh, I can't add any more to my TBR. Because it's like, come on. You can add it. Doesn't mean you have to read it right now. You can just put it on a list and it can be there. and that's all. It's not a hard commitment, you know? That's what I don't think. My TBR is not a hard commitment that I must do. The TBR that I have is always allowed to change. It's allowed that. I'm allowed to do that, okay? So I get the frustration, though, especially when they're like, they make that commitment and then they do not seem to make any effort in changing it. But I also understand the other side of it being like, I want to do this, but it's really, really hard to do that. And I'm going to do my best to get my TBR down as best as I can. But also, look, pretty book. This one made me upset. Cozy fantasy is just litfic fantasy rebranded. In litfics, the main plot is character growth, and to me, that's the exact same major plot of a lot of those cozy fantasies. I disagree. I don't think the main plot of litfic is necessarily character growth. I think litfic, in my opinion, is more about showcasing ugly truths. In a lot of situations, there may be character growth, but also cozy fantasy is also not necessarily about, well, it is mostly, I would say, character growth as well. I think the difference in cozy fantasy, or at least what should be the difference in it, is cozy fantasy, I think, should be non-spice. It should be closed door at the very least. I don't think having really spicy things fits with a cozy vibe. I think that just gets recategorized to romantasy for me, but that is a personal take on the differences between romantasy, fantasy, romance, cozy fantasy, and stuff like that. So cozy fantasy, I do think, has to deal not necessarily character growth, but character relationships and their relation to each other and the growth that way, so that the character growth in cozy fantasy is based on the relationships they build, whereas in litfic, it feels a lot more of a solo journey, in my opinion. Now, granted, I don't read a lot of litfic because litfic tends to be a lot more depressing. Cozy fantasy also has almost the promise that romance does, where it has that happy ever after. Litfic does not have that promise. So I think this really just depends on the cozy fantasy or the litfic that you're reading. I think there is some overlap. There's some gray area, but I would not ever say cozy fantasy is just litfic fantasy. No. This isn't necessarily a hot take. It's just almost not even a full statement. But finishing a book, even if it's bad, so you can properly criticize it, which this is what I do. I don't think anyone is obligated to do that. You are welcome to DNF books. I really don't. I did one this year. One. And it wasn't because it was bad. I was just like, I'm not connecting with it at all. It's almost like a soft DNF. And maybe I'll pick it up again. I probably won't, because it didn't grab my interest and it wasn't like a heavy priority book for me anyway. But I don't think everyone must do that, because not everyone is a critic. I mean, everyone's a critic, they say, but not everyone is like, you don't have to review books. I mean, you do in Herkit, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to rate them. But your experience with your books are private, and that's yours, right? You're not obligated as a reader to review. No one is. You can just read a book and read it and put it down and not say anything about it, and that's totally okay. You're also welcome to. But I don't necessarily agree with this, even though for me personally, I'm like, yeah, because it's my job to do that. But if you're not like doing what I do and consistently putting up reviews and reviewing every book you read or making vlogs and things, then no, you don't have to do that. I do think that people who are in my position who do review books, they should be finishing those books to properly critique it. I think if you do this as work, like if you're in another job, like an office job or something, and you're like, I was supposed to finish this report, but I wasn't feeling it, so I didn't, you'd get fired. You'd get fired from that job. So I treat it the same way here. We're like, my viewers depend on me to give them an honest review, and I have to do that by reading the whole book. So other people can definitely disagree with that, because I know other people are like, it's their life and they need to be able to read what they want to read too. Yes, that. But if that's the case, if they DNF a book, I don't think they should be fully reviewing it. They can still say, oh, I DNF this one, and that's it. You can DNF it, but just like disclose that. Don't give a full review. because I don't think that's fair necessarily to the book. If this is your job. Okay? If this is your job. Quotation marks for dialogue are not necessary, and readers complaining about this is not grammatically correct are lazy readers who don't want to put in extra work to engage with the writing, specifically talking about Sally Rooney, although she is hardly the first author to make this stylistic choice. I'm gonna hard disagree. Granted, I've never read anything by Sally Rooney, but she also writes stuff that I don't have any interest in reading. Livick! I don't think it's that people are lazy. I think that is just, that's why we have punctuation. It helps us understand intent and what, because how would you tell the difference necessarily between thought and dialogue? Because sometimes dialogue does not have dialogue tags. With this, that means everything needs a dialogue tag of some sort to showcase that they are saying this aloud and it's not an inner thought. Because there's different ways, like you can italicize. Would you say you can't italicize at all for inner thoughts? Do you want everything to be that you just want people to work a lot harder? Sorry, if I'm seeing a lot of you, as if I'm accusing you. But this opinion in general, I don't think is right. I don't think that means people are lazy. I think that's a really harsh take on it. Quotation marks exist for a reason. Now, granted, I get really confused when I do read like a UK author who they don't use the double quotations, they use the one. But I can make my brain work a little bit more for that. But reading is for leisure for the most part, not always, but like when we're talking about like Sally Rooney books or something, this is leisure, right? We're allowed to be lazy then, you know? So I'm gonna disagree. I disagree with that one. This is a simple one. I like deckled edges. Me too. I like deckled edges. There we go. If you don't like deckled edges, you're a bad person. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That was sarcasm. That is totally an aesthetic choice. I think deckled edges are great because I think they help with turning the page because they're different sizes. So I think that makes it easier. Oh, thrifted or secondhand books are better than brand new books. Agree and disagree? I don't think they're better. I think they can be, because I think this just depends on the type of book collector you are. You know, what kind of library you're building. I personally do like my books more pristine and in good condition. I don't like having books that are written in and annotated and crunkled pages and stains on them. Like, sure, that shows that the book was lived in and loved, but I don't want that. I think it's kind of gross. I don't want that. I like my books. My books are my shelf trophies, so I would like them to be in their condition. I have books that are tattered and old, but those are deteriorating and I'm sad and I don't know how to fix them. I found 2 old childhood books that, oh man, one of them is seen many better a day. But yeah, I don't necessarily think this is a blanket statement of like, yes, they're always better. No, I don't think they're always better. I have a lot of books that are new that I really like them. And I think they're pretty. I don't know. Depends on the context of in what context are they better. For the environment, probably. I would agree there. But yeah. People who pre-ordered Audra Winter's book and hated it are not owed a refund, even if the quality is objectively bad, as they chose to believe the marketing from the author. I don't fully know the Audra Winter's controversy. I've heard very briefly. I have not had time to deep dive into it. I think I know what this is referring to. But yeah, you're not owed a refund if the book is bad. You chose to do that. It does feel like you got scammed. I can understand the outrage of that. I don't know how much people were paying though. So I do think there is a quantifiable difference in the experience, because like if I, grab a book from Barnes & Noble and I read it and I hate that book, that's on me. I bought that. I can't go back and go, I want to return this book. It's 1 star. I consumed it. It's like I went to a meal and I ate the whole thing and I just didn't like the taste of it. And it was not like food poisoning. This is a different thing. But like I ate it. You got to pay for what you ate. That's how that works, So it's the same kind of thing. Like, I would feel heartbroken in general if somebody bought his FAQ and then was like, I hated your book, return it. I'm returning it. No, no, no. Because when you buy a book, it's almost like gambling. You chose to place the bet that you were going to like it. And if you didn't, you lost the bet. But again, this does depend a little bit more on the situation with, like, was Audrey Winters charging an exploitative amount or something? Was it not quality in terms of the book itself? Like, was it promised to have a sprayed edge and it didn't? Was it promised to have character art and it didn't, or something? Those kind of things, like, yeah, because then it's false marketing, right? It's false advertising. Marketing, you can't really do that, but like false advertising of like what you were supposed to receive as a whole product, sure. But you can't really say false advertising on a subjective thing, which is the book and your reception of that book. So, yeah, sure, maybe. Nothing wrong with women writing gay male books, but why are all the overwhelmingly majority of popular books about gay men written by women? And why is it always sad? Like, gay people aren't allowed to be happy. Same for manga, BL space too, mostly written by women for women. Sometimes it feels like a fetish. Oftentimes it's also not what the gay experience is like. That's yeah, absolutely fair. There is a problem with a lot of straight women writing gay men, and it is a fetishization. I remember seeing, not always, it's not always a fetishization, because I do enjoy reading queer stories, but I like reading all kinds of queer stories, not exclusively gay men. And I know there are people out there who are like, I only read gay stories. And I saw a weird interview once of somebody being like, yeah, because of why they didn't read sapphic books, and they're like, ew, I don't want to imagine myself, but I can imagine myself in the gay male situation. I'm like, but if you identify as a woman, then you can't really imagine yourself in that means you're just pretending it's not gay when it is. You're just pretending it's a straight romance and you're the gay male character, but it's not. And that mind-boggling, for one, on that. But yeah, it is kind of upsetting that male writers, like, I could barely name a lot of gay male writers writing gay fiction, because there's not as many as the overwhelming amount of women, especially in the indie space. I will say in the indie space, because like there's TJ Klune, obviously, he's a huge male writer who is gay. You have like Case and Calendar, you have Tucker Shaw, and so you have these guys who do write it, and they're in the trad world. I would think, actually, now that I'm thinking more about this, in the trad world, you would see more of gay male writers writing gay male stories, but in the indie world, you see a lot more cishet women writing gay male stories. And maybe there's a correlation to this. I don't know. I am speculating right now, but I do think, because I can't name a traditional female author who's really banking on gay stories off the top of my head. Maybe there's a really obvious one I'm just not thinking of. If there is, put it in below. I'd love to discuss this more, because it is a fascinating kind of cultural topic that definitely needs to be explored more. So thank you for bringing it to my I mean, it was kind of, I've known some of the Discord, and mainly been in the indie space and not in the trad space. So I need to do more delving into this topic. Let me know if you want me to delve more into that and do some more research. I'm so sick of sprayed edges. I'm not. They're beautiful. What are you talking about? You don't like art? Okay. I do think this could expand a little bit more on what they mean. I think a sprayed edge is beautiful. I do think there's some really low quality ones out there now. I do think it's becoming a little bit more mainstream to do it, so it's not feeling as special anymore. But I have a whole shelf that's just showing the sprayed edges right behind you. So fine, you don't have to like them. I'll buy them. It says Akatar is so bad. That's all it says. Akatar is so bad. Yeah. I agree. I'm sorry. Okay, I shouldn't agree to that because I haven't actually read it, but I don't want to read it. So you have to pay me to read it. 3-star rating is a good rating. I I'm going to disagree with this one. It can be. I think a 3-star rating is a neutral rating. I don't think it's good or bad. I think it's neutral. It's the middle of the scale. You know, it's like, especially in a 5-star scale where 1 is very, very bad and 2 is pretty bad. 3 is the neutral answer. And then you have good and then you have very good. That's really the scale. Now, I don't think 3 stars are bad ratings. I think they're valid ratings. But I don't necessarily think they're good. It just kind of lets me know, like if somebody 3 stars a book that I wrote, they were kind of meh about it. Like, I'm not mad at the book, but I'm not like raving about it. And that's okay. But I don't take it as like, oh, a super positive. It's neutral. It's just neutral to me. Editors should be required to read spicy scene dirty talk out loud to their boss. If they feel embarrassed or cringy, take it out. Oh my God. I don't think anyone wants that. But I do think there is some stuff that needs to be edited a lot more, especially in the spicy scenes. Especially when those things that have happened. If you know what I'm talking, what my gestures were doing. Okay. I don't know if they should read it out loud, but I think they should highlight it for their boss, and their boss has to read it out loud to themselves. If you are using a 5-star scale, you should never 6-star books. It just shows that you lack critical thinking when ranking books. A 5-star book should be the highest rank. Okay, that is fair, but I also understand that most people, when they're like, I would rate this book 6 stars if I could, that's just showcasing like, oh my God, I love this book so much that in retrospect to other books they've given 5 stars, this is far superior. So I think that's really what people do when they're like, oh, this book is 6 stars, is because something can be a 5-star in the moment, and then years later, oh, that's not how I think 5 stars are anymore. I have plenty of books. If you delve into my Goodreads, I have books that I'm like, no way in hell would I give that 5 stars now, because I've expanded and we've grown and changed as readers. Our reading tastes are always evolving, and that's the beauty of humanity. I get the frustration though when it's like, hey, you said this was a 5-star, but you're saying this now? I thought your scale was this. And I understand wanting to be very clear and literal with it. But I also understand me like, look, I love all these other 5-star books, but this takes the cake kind of a thing. The chosen one trope is boring. I agree. And that's coming from someone who kind of wrote a book series with a chosen one trope, but it was a refusal of the call style, which is where I like the chosen one trope. The refusal of the call is how you save a chosen one trope, in my opinion. But yes, I do think chosen one is overdone. Especially if how you do a good chosen one trope is where that character actually emulates what the chosen one is supposed to be, and it's not just a random person that is the chosen one, and it doesn't make any sense as to why they are chosen. I think that happens quite a lot. And if they're going to be the chosen, then they need to be the chosen and be impressive. That's the only chosen one I will accept. And if you got that, we're friends. Most smutty/spicy books would be better without the spice/sex scenes. If you want sex in your books, there is a genre for that. Yeah, and that's called erotica. Yeah. I do it. That's why I do my thirsty vlogs. I evaluate the books. Is the smut necessary? More often than not, no. No, it was not. Now, I get why people write it, because I wasn't on a panel, but I went to a panel with writers, but they wrote erotica. And I do think that there is a stigma against saying that you read erotica, because then it's just corn. And people not wanting to admit that necessarily. I don't know for sure. Some people will proudly say that they read that. To each their own. Overall, most of them don't need to be there, especially when they're excessive and there's like multiple, and especially when they're in the middle of like, oh, let's say a war meeting. We don't need that. Unnecessary. Let's focus, shall we? Twists and turns over plot is like watching BBC Sherlock. It's sexy, but no one will see it coming because there is nothing to see. Ah, okay. So, putting more twists and turns over your actual plot is bad. But no one will see it coming. Yes. This had a longer, I cut this one down because it had a much longer one where it was equating like a BBC Sherlock episode where all the clues are there, but none of them were presented to the viewer. It was only for Sherlock to know. So the viewer ends up feeling a bit cheated because they weren't given the same opportunity to solve the thing. And I agree. If a bad like mystery or something is not bad if the reader guesses what's going on, that's good. You want the reader to figure it out. You want them to go, aha, I know it. And having it come out of the blue when it's a twist that like, oh, that information was never put on the page, that's bad writing. That's just bad. That's pulling something. That's pulling something. It's pulling the veil over their eyes and not letting the reader even attempt to figure it out. Now, you can still have a shocking plot twist, but the reader better be able to go back and go, oh, wait, I do remember that. Oh, okay. Or they can reread and go, oh, I see it now. You know, that's good writing versus bad writing. Collecting books and reading books are two separate hobbies. It is possible to enjoy either one or both. Agree. Absolutely agree. Books are works of art, as well as leisure and hobby and you know, just for whatever. Books are for everybody in whatever capacity they want. I'm a collector and I'm also a reader. I'm on the both category of this. I love having an expansive library. I love aesthetically looking at books. I think there is a great appreciation to the art form that is, especially bookbinding, like especially old school bookbinding. I love, like I said before, my sprayed edges, my special editions. There's art to it. And I think that is a separate appreciation of books versus the reading part. You can obviously enjoy those aspects, all of those aspects, or you can enjoy just one of those aspects, and that is fine. You cannot enjoy a good book. Art is subjective. I don't have to like Picasso to understand the influence of his words. I mean, but you do enjoy good books. It's subjective to you, so I'm not quite sure I understand the statement here being made. Is it like when people say, oh, I enjoy a good book, because it's subjective to that person? So like if I give you, oh, hey, this book is good, and then you don't enjoy it, therefore you did not enjoy a good book, but it's good book because of me. I guess this just gets convoluted into the literal sense of words, and I think a lot of the phrasing of enjoying a good book is meant to be subjective. I don't know. That needs more explanation as to what the statement is trying to tell me. Like, yeah, you don't have to like Picasso to understand the influence, but you also don't necessarily enjoy a bad book, because if the book was bad to you, then you didn't enjoy reading it. You still read the bad book, but Well, I mean, okay, wait. I enjoy trash reads. They're not good books, you know, objectively. I mean, it's still subjective, but like, if there's like lots of grammar mistakes or something, it's not necessarily a well-written book. I can still enjoy a trash read for what it is. Is that the kind of the sentimentality? I think this is just anger at the English language. All right. The book market in white and English-speaking worlds is so saturated. We don't need half-arsed ghost-written celebrity books. Oh, hell yeah. I hate the ghost-written celebrity books. Why? Why do we have that? I'm iffy on ghostwriting in general. I don't like the whole like James Patterson kind of stuff, and my suspicions for like Danielle Steele and Nora Roberts and things. I don't think, with the amount of books that are being pumped out under their name, I wholeheartedly do not believe that they are writing all these books. That is just a suspicion. It is not a fact. I get in some ways about ghostwriting, but in other ways, I'm like, huh? I did meet a ghostwriter recently, but he's like, oh yeah, I did textbooks and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that makes more sense. You're not like trying to take credit for the facts and stuff. You're not writing the physics book, necessarily of like the actual, you're not creating the formula, so you don't take credit for it. You're just ghostwriting it to make it legible for kids, for students and stuff. But yeah, that I get more. But when it comes to like terms of fiction, I'm like, I want that author, the actual person, the ghostwriter, to get credit. Why does this big name get to take credit for work they didn't do? That doesn't compute in my brain. Anyway, that went off a little tangent, but yeah, I agree with that. We don't need those. Contemporary romance is all the same. No, and you're wrong. Wholeheartedly. You are so wrong. Oh, you're wrong. Sweet Summer Child, how many have you read? They're all different. No, sure, they're all guaranteed to have a happy ever after. Is that what you mean? They're all very different. Many, many contemporary romances tackle a lot of different topics. There's a whole journey that you experience with a book. That's why we read it. We want to experience the journey and then be guaranteed to be like, okay, that was a satisfying ending. There are plenty that are bad that don't have satisfying endings or ruin it with the ending and stuff. Even if that ending is happy ever after or whatever, but it's the wrong kind of happy ever after. Pregnancy tropes. Sorry. Anyway. But no, contemporary romance is so diverse. There's so much out there. You might just be marketed wrong. Maybe the things that you're seeing is because of the scope that you're being presented, which sure, that might make it feel that way, but that is not true. That is not true. Some books would have better endings if they were tragedies. Nope, screw you. Nope. Maybe. I don't like it. Now, there are books that have tragedies, Blood Over Brighthaven, that were very, very good for me, but I hate reading tragedies. Like I said, I'm depressed enough. Give me a happy ending so I can live vicariously through these characters. Okay? That's all I want. Popular reviewers, for example, 100K plus subscribers, should be mindful of their power and influence when they make rant reviews, specifically when the books are indie, not very well known, and have like 3 reviews on Goodreads. People should be honest in their reviews, of course, but it feels kind of gross to go out of one's way to find a book that's not well known, make a video negatively reviewing that book to their audience of thousands of or hundreds of thousands, and then also get paid for it via Patreon sponsorships, etc. It's different if the book is super popular and traditionally published. I mean, I think every reviewer can be conscious of what, their reach and stuff. I do still think it's important to have honest reviews, but I do think seeking out not well known and purposely negative, almost maliciously reviewing, I guess. Now, there are certain authors in the indie space that I forever will trash because they are a bad person and they should not be invited to certain conventions here in Colorado. And they objectively catfished a ton of people into thinking they were a lesbian professor, and also use AI covers, and also are a terrible writer. And I just don't want other people to be fooled by their lies. So there's that. But I do think, especially if, it really depends on the review and the situation. I do think book influencers have more influence than they realize. There's been one-star bomb campaigns for things in the past that really shouldn't have been what they were, whether you think they were valid or not. But if you haven't read that book and you're basing that off of somebody else's negative review, it's not really your opinion. You're just borrowing someone else's, I guess. But yeah, it's a lot of nuance. And I do think sometimes people in the booktube world, at least in the book reviewing world, get a little bit high on their horse and know, they also do know that negative reviews get more views in general, which is really sad and unfortunate, because people just really get to bank on being a ranter And then it's like, do you even enjoy reading? You know, it's that kind of vibe to it. So yeah, I can agree to an extent with this one. People are allowed to read or like works by problematic authors or that contain problematic content as long as they're open to conversation and think critically about it. Again, to an extent. I no longer, I mean, I never really did. I don't believe in separating art from the artist as long as that artist is still alive and making money off of that thing. I think you can definitely separate art and artist with like classics because that person's not making the money off of it. And you can have those good conversations. But I think liking something, and I'm going to use, of course, Harry Potter as an example to this. Liking Harry Potter right now is extremely harmful to actual real life people. And you may not think that. You may be like, well, it's my personal life and I can like whatever I want. Yes, but by going out in the world and wearing your Harry Potter shirt or referencing it constantly, or you're not necessarily making money, but yeah, you are keeping the IP alive, and you are also showcasing you are not necessarily, and you might be, but what you're showing is that you care more about a fictional series than actual real life people who are suffering due to a woman who's made money, who uses the money she has made off of this IP to actively help make legislation that is hurting people. Regardless of your opinion on the lifestyle choices that people make it's their lives should not be legislated, whether or not they can exist in spaces or even exist as themselves. That should be a concern. That should be something that is, everyone has a right to be who they are in the world. Everyone should feel like they have space in this world. And what she has done is actively funded legislation with the money off the IP you so love that I once used to love and adore, and is using that to harm people. It is giving people the ability, it is giving people the free rein to actively hate and want the destruction of a person's life, their mental health, but their actual life or death situation here. So that is why I disagree with this statement. I do think, sure, there are certain like problematic things you can still enjoy, or like has problematic content if you're open to having the conversation about like, okay, like if we could go back to Twilight or any of like the dark romantic stuff, like there's actively, this is not a good relationship, this is an unhealthy relationship, but you can enjoy that work with while still knowing that like I don't want that in my own life. That is not an ideal. It's fun to like watch because it's fictional and it can stay that way, but there's a difference in it because that author is also not like necessarily saying this is the ideal relationship that you should have. They're not doing that. They're like, this, usually content warning, this is a work of fiction and it has weird problematic things. It's just for entertainment purposes. That's fine, absolutely. But with things like Harry Potter and stuff, that is an issue. That is a really big issue. That's my take on it. Okay, cool. New adult makes no sense as a category and shouldn't exist. I feel like most of it is just YA with sex and swearing. Absolutely, I agree with that. I don't like the new adult category. I do think we need a different means of categorizing target audiences, because I also don't think middle grade is middle grade anymore. I think middle grade has now gone to what YA used to be, and YA is really, everything's kind of aging itself up, and I do think we need more definitive lines. I don't like new adult versus young adult because they feel they're the same word in my mind, because a young adult, if you're an adult, like adult in America is 18 or older, depending, 21 or older, that range, right? So that's a young adult. That they're new to being an adult. A teen, it should be teen, not YA. It should be teen, because a teenager can be in that 13 to 18-ish, but 18's adults, so we'll cut it off at 17. Now, granted, there is a world of difference between a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old. So we need further. We need elder teen and young teen, and then preteen, and then not even middle grade. We need even younger than that. But it needs to have clearer, definitive target audiences. That's what we need. We should call them something else, but that's the age groups we need. I don't like using new adult as the term. I mean, new adult could be the term. We could just get away with YA altogether, because there's also connotations. Like, I honestly, if I hear new adult, I know there's going to be sex in it. I know it. I've never seen a new adult that isn't that. And I would technically classify like Ashboard Archives as a new adult, but there's no sex in it. But it's just because they're young. They're younger adults, but they're not teens. Authors should not re-release books with new covers just to match later books. They should keep consistent with original design. In the indie world, yeah, sure. I mean, I think, no, I'm going to actually disagree with this. In the trad world, it's not the authors that are doing this, it's the publishers. And they're doing it as a cash grab. In the indie world, I do think every indie author is welcome to change their covers, especially if like you started and you didn't have the funds to pay a good cover artist or something. And so you kind of slapdash something together in paint, not AI. If you used AI, go away. But if you slapdash something on Canva or something, and then because that's what you had available to you at the time, I think it's perfectly fine to re-release with new covers, as long as all those covers match. I think that's fine. I understand the frustration with certain ones, but I do think for the most part, this is a trad pub issue. And that is because it's the cash grabs of just, here, get the newest edition. And they're always paperbacks now. They're never new ones in hardcover. Except, no, I'm kidding. Poppy War. I love the new Poppy War ones. Although the original Poppy Wars were good, but I do love getting the new ones. Even though the third one's not out yet, but I guess I disagree. I'm sorry. If a reader usually does not like the books they are reading, they probably need to reevaluate what they look for in a book and where they get their recommendations from. Absolutely. Yeah. If you're hating everything you're reading, it's time to audit. It is time to do a 5-star audit and get back into what actually you're going to enjoy. Because sometimes the super hype books, they don't hit. They just don't. For each person individually, My taste, very different than a lot of other tastes. I've seen your reactions to the Q's reviews and stuff in Herkyed. A lot of you are like, God, I do not align with Q's taste. That's okay. That's okay. You like your books, I like mine. No biggie. People buy too many books. Overconsumption is rampant in bookish spaces. Like, seriously, how many unread books do people own? And 2, libraries are hugely underutilized. Oh, there's 2 parts to this one. Sorry, I forgot the one. Rude. 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 This is just a difference in opinion, but you're so wrong. Because, like we said before, reading books and collecting books are different hobbies. They're different things. I think everyone is within their rights to do whatever they want with their money. It's their money. Doesn't concern you. You can do whatever you want with your money. I'm going to keep getting books. Now, granted, I try to get them as best I can and for less money. But I love my shelf trophies. I love a wall of books, okay? It's aesthetically very pleasing to me. I wish I'd read all these, but there's not enough time in the day. When you have a full-time job and a life, I would love to be able to just read nonstop. That'd be fantastic for the most part. Now that I think about it, it might be a form of torture if that's all you're ever allowed to do. That seems like a Black Mirror episode. Okay, anyway, this one hurts me. I do agree, yes, there is a problem in the world in general with overconsumption and stuff. And libraries, yes, are highly underused. I think the problem for the underuse is that libraries are losing so much funding that it's not that they're, I don't know how to explain the words that I want to say about libraries right now. I love libraries. They are incredibly overused. They are so limited, though, because of the lack of funding. They provide so much. They should be paid a lot more. They should be funded a lot more. I think libraries suffer from an idea versus what they are. They need more marketing. Libraries need more marketing. That's what it is. Okay. A happy ever after for contemporary romance should not include marriage and children by default. Agreed. A happy ever after depends on the characters. It depends on what would be happy ever after for them. If it doesn't work for the character's arc, it shouldn't just happen out of nowhere. Okay? This is where I was a little mad with, I read the Austen affair, and I didn't like how they like got back to, I don't want to spoil it, but there's marriage in it, and it's like, wait, you guys you haven't actually known each other that long. That's a big step to do that fast, in my opinion. But yeah, it shouldn't, I don't think it by default should have to be that. I think a happy ever after is, especially in a romance, is just those two characters being together and happy in whatever way makes sense for those characters. It's okay to use KU as a personal choice, but booktubers making videos defending Amazon to justify supporting them, nope. You don't need to make free advertisements for $1 billion company. I don't know who this is actually talking about. I've never seen a booktuber defend Amazon. They're clearly not on my algorithm. Yes, KU is a personal choice. Granted, I do hate overall Amazon. As an indie author, it is unfortunate that Amazon is kind of not the only, but it is the biggest way for us to get our books in the hands of people, because when people are subscribed to KU, the book is then free. They don't have to think about paying for my book, and I still get paid for them for reading it. So it has that benefit. I don't like Amazon as a whole. I think there's a lot of things that could be improved with this, and I wish there was a bigger competitor out there that was doing good and doing better. There's nothing that has really reached the level that Amazon has reached, and that is really sucky because it feels like Amazon has a monopoly on so much and it needs more regulation and things. But I wish it was more well known about alternatives to Amazon, because there are alternatives, but they're not as well known. Like, you can talk about Kobo and stuff. People are still like, what's Kobo? And Ingram Spark. I feel like only if you are a writer do you know what Ingram Spark is. I don't think a lot of readers know. Some do, obviously. If you've been in indie spaces, then you've learned about Ingram Spark, but it is not an innate thing that people, because Amazon's almost innate at this point. We're now born with an Amazon account. That's what it feels like. It can be comforting to relate to a character, but if this is necessary for you to enjoy a book, specifically white cis straight readers, should not be a prerequisite for an enjoyable book. This is most egregious when concerned with BIPOC, LGBTQ, Indigenous, and refugee stories. I agree. Yeah, you shouldn't have to relate to the character as a whole to enjoy the book. You definitely can. It can make a book more enjoyable when you're like, oh, I feel it's myself on the page. But it's definitely important to read from perspectives other than your own. That's how we learn as people. If we only read our own perspective, we'd never grow. Reading a book of any size in any form is reading. Stop saying audiobooks are not reading. Agree. Hard agree. Easy. Don't even have to fight that one. Easy. Everything is reading. A mystery that you can fully guess less than 80% in is a poorly written mystery. 80%? I don't think that's necessarily poorly written. I think you should be able to follow. We talked about this a bit before. That kind of falls into what I was saying before about being able to lead your reader along. I do think if they're able to guess it like right away immediately, yeah, you didn't do a great job of hiding that. They should be able to put on their detective hats and figure it out along with the main character, you know? The Dungeon Crawler Carl audiobooks is Amazon propaganda, and we shouldn't be hyping it up to avoid encouraging more Amazon exclusives. Okay, I have not read my Dungeon Crawler Carl yet, and I was really upset when it became an Amazon exclusive because I could no longer get it from my library. and it perpetuated an Audible subscription that I wanted to get rid of. But I kept it because I have to read this book as part of the 25 of 2025. I don't know if we shouldn't be hyping up the Dungeon Crawler Carl books. I do hate that it has become an Amazon exclusive. I don't wholeheartedly agree with this opinion, but I do kind of agree with the opinion of like, yeah, something that is getting this much traction and stuff is definitely going to cause an incentive for people to be Amazon exclusive, and nobody really wants that. I don't know how that sale went for Matt Dinniman. I don't know if he was the one to sign it up as that, or because I don't know the story. I don't know the history of how these books came to be. I'm pretty sure they were indie at some point, but now are traditional. So it might have been the publisher making the deal versus the author themselves making the deal. But did they have input? I don't know. There's a lot more convoluted behind the scenes that we just don't know. But I mostly agree with that. This I don't know about. Yana Reeds didn't deserve all the hate for saying there are too many words on the page in a review. I've never seen any of her other videos, but all she was saying is that she prefers the e-reader format, and there are hours-long commentary videos about how she's an anti-intellectual for not wanting to read too many words on a page. She just likes the font size on her Kindle. I can't really give an opinion on this. I know nothing.
Hi, Editing Q here. I did a little research into this, and I actually disagree with this opinion. Nowhere in her original TikTok was she talking about e-reader font size. She was quite literally complaining about just the wall of text that is 6 of crows, and I really do disagree. I don't think she was talking about that. Did she deserve as much hate? I think she was taking a very hot take on something that is very basic in the book world, and that is that books have words on the pages, and 6 of Crows is not as tiny a font as I thought she might be talking about. There have been books with tinier font. 6 of Crows is standard. It's real standard. Now, I do think the very beginning of 6 of Crows is kind of hard to follow, but overall, I think some of the sarcastic remarks she got back were kind of deserved. Not full hate, but I don't think she was at all talking about e-reader sizes. Not because she wasn't even reading it on e-reader, and she didn't mention it at all in her video, so I'm gonna have to say nope, I don't.
Marketing a book as published reworked fan fiction is going to lead to a lot of legal issues for the fan fiction community again. Absolutely it will. I have no problem with people writing fan fiction and then utilizing that as a means to learn and grow and write other work. I don't like the just renaming the characters and then it's published, because it's not really your work still. Like, yeah, you wrote the words and stuff. You did not really create those characters. You might have put them in an AU situation and reframed the world and the setting, but they were still built on something, on someone else's work. So there is a gray area to publishing that. If we're talking about like the Alchemized situation, and it was Alchemized, Rose in Chains, and The Irresistible Urge to Fall in Love with Your Enemy, I haven't read any of these books. I do actually have the arc for Rose in Chains because I did not know that it was Hermione fanfic. When I requested it on NetGalley, it didn't say it anywhere, and I thought, just went, oh yeah, sure, let's request that. Had no idea. The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy, though, I don't think was actually Hermione fanfic. I think the author was a fanfic writer, and then she said that this was a completely different thing. So I'm fine with that if that's true. That's what I've heard, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But I did look on that person's, like, Blue Sky or something, and they have, like, the trans flag in their profile. So I think that one might have gotten lumped in because of the publishers marketing it as Hermione fanfiction. But I know Alchemized definitely was. I don't know about Rose in Chains. I haven't heard anything about Rose in Chains. I just know that it was also marketed that way. But I have been watching Willow Talks Books about her Alchemized review stuff, and I definitely recommend you guys watch that, because that is hot tea there. But yeah, I absolutely think this will bring up publishing things. I also don't think you should be selling fan fiction. Hello? What are you doing? Do we not know about Anne Rice? Okay, yeah. Most sprayed edges are ugly and a sign of lazy marketing. Shut up. Nuh-uh. And continuing forward, special editions no longer feel special. Like, not every book needs to be a hardcover, have sprayed edges, or different end papers. It all just feels like a way to get the reader to spend more money in a cash grab by publishers. Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that one. Yeah, absolutely. Don't look at my shelf. Okay. Having 8 variants of a book come out is a cash grab. It isn't special, it's greedy. Yeah. And that's because the publishers want to make money, and they're desperate to make money right now because the indie world is killing them, and we should be. Reading a large amount of books does not necessarily mean the reader is prioritizing quantity over quality or deliberately choosing shorter, fat, easier books to inflate their numbers. Some people read a lot and can still savor and enjoy what they're reading. Hi, it's me. I read very, very fast. I still intake all the stuff that I'm reading. I just have ADHD. I process things very, very quickly, okay? It's okay if you read slower, all right? Also, this is my job, so I do want to be reading a lot so that I can provide you with the reviews that is part of my job. I agree. Yeah, it doesn't mean they're prioritizing. Some people, yes, sure. There are people out there who may do that, but there are plenty of people who do not do that either. We're just faster readers or listening to audiobooks. That's how I read so much. I listen to a ton of audiobooks at 2.5 speed because that's my brain's processing power, okay? I'm sorry. I can multitask and I do a lot of crafting, and I don't really watch TV and stuff anymore. I don't have shows that I constantly watch, and that's okay. Please tell me that's okay. Romantasy is ruining the fantasy genre. That is hot. I have to agree, in part. I do think the fantasy genre itself is still going real strong. But romantasy, I think, is ruining expectations when a romantasy reader picks up a book that is not a romantasy, and they're equating the romantasy with fantasy. I do agree with that. One of my dear friends has a fantasy book, and it is not a romantasy, but some person on the internet gave them a shitty review because there wasn't enough romance. And it was not a romance book. It is not marketed as a romance book. And yet, the romantasy readers out there will be like, this sucks, it's no romance. Read your synopsis, people. Read it. But I do think, like, I love that there are so many readers. It's the same effect that, like, Twilight had. Like, Twilight, I'm literally in the middle of listening to Life and Death right now for the 17 vampire books that you all forced me to do. Twilight is not a good book, but it was an addictive book that got people reading. And I think the same is for romantasy. It is really, there are really good romantasys out there that are very epic and amazing, but there are a lot of them that are just popcorn. The romantasy popcorn effect is where people are not necessarily doing the footwork to research what they're picking up. And that is an effect that is happening. It's not wholeheartedly ruining fantasy because fantasy is still getting well out there, but I do think part of this may be a little bit, I don't know for sure. This is not me calling out this person who submitted this. I think this opinion itself might have a little misogyny in it. It might, because fantasy in general is very dominated by cishet white males, which their romances in there, if there is one, are usually very poorly written or poorly done, in my opinion. There are good ones out there. But I think because it is romance and predominantly women are reading romantasy, I think there might be a little bit of hidden subconscious misogyny in the statement that it's ruining fantasy, because also there are great women writers out there who are writing fantasy. I'm not saying there's not. I'm just saying that this sentiment might be rooted in a little bit of that because predominantly the audience for romantasy are women. And when they're expanding into the fantasy realm, now there's the expectation that fantasy should have romance in it, which is not true, and I don't agree with that. But it might be worthy to reflect a little bit on the statement. Not, again, this is just opinions. You are not a bad person for having said opinion, but it might be a good idea to start looking a little bit more inward at why. Now, you could definitely expand if there's more to that opinion, put it in the comment below, and that's fine. It's totally awesome. I could also open to being wrong. I can be wrong. Just because it has a death tournament in the book does not mean it is a Hunger Games X blank book. Agreed. Death tournament does not mean Hunger Games. I do think a lot of popular books, not just Hunger Games, are very much overused as comp titles. I get why it's done, though, because Hunger Games is amazing, and people see, oh, I loved Hunger Games, I better love this, and then get horribly disappointed at it when it's not Hunger Games level of amazingness. So, yeah, I agree. Reading has always been political. Being able to keep politics out of reading is something only privileged readers can fathom. Absolutely. All books are political, no matter what. The act of writing is a political act. The act of translation is treasonous. What is it? That's the Babel line. I forgot the line. I love that line, though. Crap. Is it treasonous or is it traitorous? It's something like that. It is a political act because it is the right to free speech. So that's why, no matter the content of the book, it is a political thing. Because you have the right to write it, you have the right to read it, you have the right to have access to it. That is what we mean when we say all reading is political. All books are political. That's what we mean. We don't necessarily mean that every book is going to have a polarizing political opinion, but it is the act itself where it is not controlled by the government. It is not censored by the government. Even though there are plenty of groups out there, Moms for Liberty, that are trying to censor that and ruin it and control the media and control those things. That is what we mean by this. 99.9% of dark romance readers don't know how to write the difference between CNC and straight up SA. Yeah. I don't know if it's 99.9% of dark romance readers. I might lower that percentage a little bit. But yes, I do think there is a problem with SA being shown as romantic in the end and not CNC, which is consensual non-consent, which is a different thing. Yeah, I do think there is. That's why I do my thirsty vlogs, because it's like, that's my whole problem with the Ice Planet Barbarian series right now. Is like, this is not What? I don't look forward to reading Haunting Adeline, by the way. Just a FYI. I feel that's going to be one. Wait! Okay, unplanned dark romance, specifically Haunting Adeline type books that romanticize stalking, rape, etc. should not be allowed to be marketed as romance. That was unplanned. That was what I pulled next. Oh my god, that's so funny. But also, yeah, I agree. Again, why I don't look forward to evaluating that book. Not every indie book deserves a trad pub deal. Now, at first glance, sure, I agree. On second glance, this is equating trad as the goal, as the winning team, you know. So maybe not every trad book deserves to be indie, you know? It really depends on where you're placing your value in publishing, because there is value to both overall, but saying an indie book doesn't deserve trad is saying that an indie book is worse than trad overall, and that I disagree with wholeheartedly. There are so many good indie books that do just amazing as indie books. So yeah, do I think that those authors, I think every indie author deserves the amount of money a trad deal can give them, but not every trad deal. Like, a lot of people don't understand, people who get published, the money that they're actually getting, like, up front is not as much as you'd expect. And or that you'd want. Like, I know Shiranje Zhao has talked about this, where she only got like, I think it was like 12,000 or 14,000 or something like that for Iron Widow. And it was massive success. So she earned those returns back in full, kind of thing. The publisher earned that money back, because that's what an advance is the publisher is paying you because they're banking on at least making that much back. And so in the grand scheme of things, 14,000 is not a lot. It's a lot to me. Not enough to fully pay off my college debt, though. You know, definitely something that can help, but it's not. I think a lot of people think traditional authors are making like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's not really the case unless you're like a huge name. Which, like, Leigh Bardugo got a 7-figure deal for like 20 books or something. Like, that's, yeah, crazy. But she's also a really good writer. You know, she's gonna deliver on that. But I feel like I'm going on a bit of a tangent now. But overall, I think this needs to be reevaluated to, do you think trad is the only valid way to publish a book? If so, your opinion's wrong then. That's wrong. And that's not cool, because indie books are awesome. And many of them do deserve to be paid at the level of a big superstar trad deal. Not everybody does. That's fair. Bad books don't exist. There's a specific type of book for each of us. I feel like it's tough to get a poorly written book published. Well, with the okay, on that side, it's not anymore, because you can just publish a bad book. You can publish a poorly written book. I've seen plenty of them where people just throw it up on Amazon and it's not edited. It's got no organization to it. It's terrible. So I disagree. I do think overall what you're saying, yes, it's because reading is subjective, but no, there's definitely books that should not exist. Reading a ton of classics doesn't make you a better reader. Agree. It makes you a little bit pretentious, or a lot, depending on the type of person you are. A Goodreads average rating of 3.5 does not mean it's a bad book. Depending on the reader, this could be some people's 5-star read. Only reading books with an average rating of 4 or above tells me the reader is not discerning of their own taste compared to public opinion. I can agree mostly with that. Like, I wouldn't go so far to say like that as a person who's not discerning. I do think there are connotations to a 3.5, and when you look at the distribution of that, if you can look on Goodreads, you can see how many 5 stars, how many 4 stars, and 3, and you can see how it's averaging out. I do think when there is an overwhelming amount of 1 stars in comparison to 5 stars, that it's worth looking a bit more into why that book has gotten so many 1 stars that has brought down its average rating. But yeah, 3.5 is fine, because it could be a great book to you. I've had plenty of books like that where it's got like a low, like one of my favorite books is The Graces by Laura Eve, and that has a fairly low average rating on Goodreads, but I loved that book. Now granted, I haven't reread it in a while or ever, but like when I read it, I really, really loved that book, and maybe I do need to reread it and see where I stand on that. But at the time, 5-star read, that book was so good. I felt it gave me so much at the time I was reading it. But for a lot of other people, they don't seem to like that book. And I don't know why. Because I loved it. I still love I can remember the feeling I had while reading the book. But maybe I need to look more into it. Maybe I need to read it again. And I'll find something different now that my reading's changed. Because I read that back in like 2016 or 2017 or something like that. A long time ago. There is nothing wrong with only reading one genre. Also, listening is not reading, but it is still impressive and consuming the work. And a good thing, it's just literally not reading. Pedant. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. You're a bit of a pedant. It's reading. The definition for reading has changed over the years. It does include listening. Because the problem I have with this statement is it's just really being pedantic, and it's like, you can't say you read an audiobook. It's innate. It's intuitive to say you read a book and not I listened to a book, because the verb that usually goes with book is reading, right? There's a bit of ableism that comes with this, because a blind person who would read a book, not a lot of books are printed in Braille. So predominantly blind people will be listening to them as an audiobook. But they can still say that they've read the book. Okay. Like, I get why you want this, but language is changing and evolving, and reading in general, the definition of it is changing and evolving as we go. And that's happened for many words in the past. But if you go look up the definition right now, I guarantee you it's not what it was a few years ago, because now audiobooks are so prevalent that the definition itself has changed. Now, with your first statement, there's nothing wrong with only reading one genre. There's a little bit. It depends on what you want out of reading. I think, personally, you're missing out when you're reading only one genre, because there's so many good books out there in different genres. That's why I had the genre challenge in Herkyed 1.0, because I wanted people to experience things. Because some of I'm predominantly a fantasy writer. My favorite books have been sci-fi, and I separate them. I hate when fantasy sci-fi gets grouped together. They're very different, and they have very different tropes and very different qualifications to make them that. Anyway, some of my favorite books have been mystery thrillers, but I don't really read mystery thrillers all that often, because more often than not, I don't like them, but I still give the genre a chance. So yeah, you should be reading more than one genre, because you can pull different things. It makes different emotions. It helps you learn different experiences. So yeah, if you're predominantly just reading one genre, no, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's also nothing wholly right with it either. I think everyone should be trying to grow and learn in general as humans. But hey, if that's not the goal for you as a person, that's also fine. I'm just going to disagree with you. I'm always going to genre hop in my writing and my reading. One character singing to another automatically takes me back to the cringy song fix that used to be all over fanfic websites and gives me immediate secondhand embarrassment. I will skip it and pretend it never happened, or DNF the book. I won't DNF the book, but boy, do I hate it. I hate, like, as someone who is a singer, right? I love music. I play instruments. I love singing. I hate when characters are singers in books and are musicians in books. I just, there's something about it that, like, no, this doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. And like trying to parse out what the song is when you're just physically reading it, and then let's say you listen to the audiobook later and it's not the melody you thought it was and the voice is weird. It's like, no, I don't like that. Well, here's what I'll say. I still think, yeah, it's cringy, but there should be an option in the book where when it gets to a song, there should be like a little QR code or something. You could scan it on your phone and then it plays the song, so that maybe it's a better experience to understand the emotions and the context of the scene. Because there are many times where I've seen songs or poetry and I read them really weird. Paperbacks and hardbacks should be released at the same time. I understand so much about how you feel about this. I also understand why this doesn't happen, and I'm very sorry about it. But I also know right now we are in a hardcover drought because publishers are changing. It's cheaper to print paperbacks, and I'm a hardback girly. I love my hardcovers. They're sturdier. They live longer on my shelves. I love the value on both sides here. But I do get that publishers are stopping hardcover production. For the most part, Barnes & Noble is not stocking hardcovers, really. They made that big transition, and it's really, really sad and upsetting to me that they're slowing that down. Anyway, I agree. Yeah, they should be, because it depends on the person. But I also know that's never going to happen. Book covers with real people and book covers that are the movie adaptation cover are ugly. Agree. I agree. I hate when it's real people on the cover, and I hate movie adaptations on the cover. I hate it. I love symbolic covers. Make me think, make me parse you out. There's a lot of pearl clutching when it comes to romantasy, dark romance, etc. It's cool if it's not for you, but a lot of the concerns seems to stem from misogyny and sex negativity. God forbid women have kinks. I agree with that. Yes, absolutely. As someone who I felt like I've grown and I used to be much more of a pearl clutcher with that, but that stems from again, internalized misogyny that we grow and we learn from. Also because I am very ace. I'm a bit like, why is that necessary? But that's an ace perspective of things. But yeah, no, yeah, y'all should be able to enjoy it. But also back to that thing where like romantasy should just be called erotica at this point when it's got so many spicy scenes. Yeah, you know, maybe we need to change the genre. If the book is well written, knowing the ending doesn't change my enjoyment. Yeah, absolutely. It's reading is never really about the endings. It's the journey. It's the friends we made along the way. The fictional friends. Reading is not inherently a more intellectual hobby than any other form of media consumption. Yeah, I'm gonna mostly agree with this. I do think it depends on what comparison we're doing, because reading is different than it has a different purpose than watching a movie or playing a video game. So I think overall, yes, I agree with this statement. It's not inherently more intellectual, but I do think it is still mostly an intellectual hobby. And other forms of media can be, but it's not necessarily their intent. Does that make sense? I'm iffy on it a bit, but I'm overall, yeah, I agree. Okay, cool. Dear Lord, we still have so many. Enough with the emotionally stunted, stoic, badass FMCs. Give me a girl with emotional range who have more personality than just glaring and scowling. I agree. The tough female main, it does feel like a lot of times there's two types of female main characters, and that are at least popularized. There's definitely ones you can find that have good emotional depth, but they do feel a bit like a diamond in the rough, you know? I won't read books by authors who don't have a clear series layout. I get too overwhelmed, like the arguments over the best order to read them in. I am also overwhelmed by that. I don't like the going around if they don't have a clear, like, 1 through 5 series. I definitely am not a fan of that. I understand your pain so well. I get why it happens, but I definitely I'll still read the books. I won't need to say no to the author for that, but oh, do I get annoyed by that. Anyone who read ACOTAR Book 1 and came out of it thinking Tamlin was great and Tamlin Feyre were endgame has poor reading comprehension. I haven't read it. I can't tell you yes or no, but my feeling is probably yes. Booktubers who don't read translated novels because something gets lost in translation are just making excuses to not read diversely. I've never seen a booktuber say that, necessarily. But yeah, if that's the sentiment, yeah, you should still read translated novels. Absolutely read translated books. That's why there's a translated one in Square in her kid 2.0. Books with any amount of open door spice past first base is automatically not YA. Agreed. If there is going to be like teens have snacks, I do. It should not be spicy because the purpose of spicy reads is not what a YA book is for. The purpose of YA writing is not titillating writing as erotica and stuff like that is. So yeah, automatically not. That's why I got so mad. What was I reading? Nightblood Prince? I think was it Nightblood Prince or something? I was reading something and it says it's YA. Girl, what are you talking about? That is not YA. How dare you? The Song of Achilles is not that good. The writing is overly descriptive of the setting to obfuscate the lack of substance of the actual story and characters. Wow, that is hot. I do think Song of Achilles is overhyped. I don't remember. I read it a long time ago as well, so I can't fully agree with the whole statement because I don't remember, but I do think it's an overhyped book. I do think that. I do also think Circe is a better book by Madeline Miller. I think Circe should be her Grand Slam versus Song of Achilles. But because Song of Achilles is gay, and predominantly cis white women are enjoying it, I think that's a little bit of something to do with the overhype and why Circe doesn't get as much hype. I do think that. Okay. Authors who use AI in their books, either directly writing, using for research, or for AI slop art covers, are not interested in the process of making art and writing, but the idea of being an author. I'll go one step ahead of you. It's not even the idea of being the author. All they want is money. They're not even interested in being an author. They're interested in being rich. That's my hot take. Unlikable characters does not equal unlikable book. This complaint is most egregious when directed at women, BIPOC, mentally ill characters. Are readers really wanting to be friends with the fictional character they read about? Are marginalized characters not allowed to be complex characters? Or are only straight cis white men only allowed this? Whoa. Agree though. Yeah, unlikable characters does not equal unlikable book. Sure, I enjoy books more when I like the character, but I think unlikable characters, there's a purpose to them being that way. There are purposes to having these kinds of characters. That does not mean it is a bad book. Stop labeling everything enemies to lovers. If it's something that can be solved over one civil, mature conversation, it's not enemies to lovers. It's antagonistic to lovers at most. Agree. There is too much overuse of enemies to lovers. I do like saying rivals to lovers more. That seems more fitting for a lot of things. Argumentative to lovers. Misunderstanding to lovers. Enemies to lovers, I just think is easiest to encapsulate what you're trying to say, is that these two characters are antagonistic to each other. But yeah, I agree. It's definitely overused there. Marketing books by their tropes needs to die. Agree on that front. I do agree. I hate doing tropes because for me, I don't know what the tropes are that I should market my books by. Like for Ashport, an example, I say the trope is found family. I don't really have, I don't have an enemies to lovers trope. I don't have, I guess I have a refusal of the call trope for the chosen one situation. I have a begrudging chosen one, I guess, is what it is. But it's not a well-known trope. Hisphacac as well. What's the tropes? Somebody who's read my books, tell me what my tropes are. But yeah, I don't like to market it that way. While the term well-read is basically meaningless at this point, readers of the English language, specifically monolinguals, cannot claim this descriptor if they've never read books translated from other languages into English and books from the global south, global majority. A little bit, yeah, I would say well-read. I wouldn't say being well-read is basically meaningless. I don't think that. But I do think monolingual people do need to read diversely. Hence Herkyet. I think everyone, bilingual or monolingual, trilingual, I think polyglots, everybody needs to be reading from all kinds. People like to make accusations of anti-intellectualism within the reading community, but I don't see anyone ever cite reputable sources. Where's the journal articles? Yeah, this was actually a video that I didn't like from Willow Talks books, where she got uppity and was like, this is anti-intellectualism and I don't like it. And I'm like, well, not all reading is about being an intellectual. I think there's reading for enjoyment. And the book, I don't remember what she was criticizing, but I was like, people aren't necessarily reading that book to be an intellectual. I don't think it's anti-intellectualism either. So yeah, I have issues with people being, it's anti-intellectualism, as if intellectualism is under attack. But yeah, I don't see people citing sources. No, that's fair as well. Okay, we've said this one already, but I like how this one is phrased. There's nothing wrong with mostly reading inside your comfort zone, but just like it's important to eat a varied diet, it's good to get some variety in your reading. Read a frickin' vegetable sometimes. I want a sticker of read a frickin' vegetable sometimes. I like that. We've talked about this. There's going to be a few that I'm like, okay, that's already talked about. That one I've already read. That's a duplicate. They want opinions on Sarah J. Maas. Not for your own reading necessarily, but the general obsession from the bookish community. I do not like Sarah J. Maas. I do not like that this woman is so popular and has a chokehold on romantasy. I don't like that a lot of fans seem to be feral in the case of her stuff, and there's people out there who are like, Tolkien copied her, and no, he did not. Sarah J. Maas wasn't even born when Tolkien was writing, that kind of stuff. I don't like that people are like, Sarah J. Maas did this first, because no, she did not. Nothing that she's done, as far as I know, in her books, has not already been done before. That's not a bad thing, because I love, the telling of things being retold and retold. That's why we tell things, to remind ourselves of things. But she is not the epitome of originality. And that's something that in the crazed fan base happens a lot. So I in the general bookish community, I'm like, let's stop. Like, she's well known enough. We can start recommending others. People being pretentious about books and reading is going to turn people away and create more drama. Why can't people accept that some people have different tastes and approach the same book in different ways? People need to get better at finding their people rather than being rude to people because they engage in reading as a hobby indifferently. Yeah, overall, I agree with that statement. Yeah, don't be pretentious. Be pretentious with your own pretentious friends. Reading shouldn't be a luxury, and book prices are outrageous these days. 100%. Yeah. Reading the classics doesn't make you a good or better reader. Reading beach read romances doesn't make you a bad or terrible reader. Absolutely. Agree. Naming tropes equals spoilers. Yeah, kind of. Kind of can. It's not fully spoilers, but it's definitely like, it gives you all the expectations. Self-published romances are better than traditionally published romances. Sometimes, yeah. Not gonna lie, yeah. Genre fiction readers should read literary fiction, and literary fiction readers should read genre fiction. Both have value. Yes. Hate how most romance novels are sold by the tropes they include rather than the plot or the characters. I also agree. I hate this. I get why it's done, but I also hate it. Catcher in the Rye, Test of the D'Urbervilles, and Pride and Prejudice are not books that everyone needs to read. I disliked all of them and feel actively stupider for having read Catcher. I also hate Catcher in the Rye. Oh my god, I hate that book so freaking much. I have not read Test of the D'Urbervilles. I have watched Test of the D'Urbervilles. I also would not want to read Test of the D'Urbervilles after having watched it. But I love Pride and Prejudice. But I'm okay with also just like, you know what? If all you do with Jane Austen's works is watch the adaptations, I think that's fine. There's some really good ones that are very accurate, and it can be enjoyed. The story itself can be enjoyed that way. Also, because the language is so different that, like, it can be very difficult as a modern person to read works back then. It doesn't make a person lazy or dumb to not be able to comprehend it. It's almost like it's a work of translation. So, yeah, no, Catcher sucks, and I hate Catcher so much. But be nice to my Pride and Prejudice, okay? She's beautiful. Making a blanket statement saying a short story isn't long enough to be good is dumb. I've given 5 stars to stories as short as 25 pages. The key is in the author. Yes, absolutely. Short stories have absolute value. Most of the time, I will say for me, I wish they were longer. But that's because I really enjoyed the short story, so I want to read more of those characters. But yeah, no, short stories can absolutely be 5 stars. Recently published books aren't bad. People who say they are just bad at picking books to read. Yeah, maybe. J.R.R. Tolkien is overrated. I'm such a bad fan. But yes, the actual writing of, like, Lord of the Rings and stuff, ooh, it's rough to get through. And I don't know if it's necessarily saying that it's bad writing. It's not bad writing, but it is from a different time. And so the language is different than for modern readers. And so it's a little harder to digest. Granted, we all know that Tolkien overdoes stuff and expands on things that really are not necessary to the plot. But that's, that's what it is. It is what it is there. But I can agree that maybe, yeah, he's overrated. I still love Lord of the Rings. But yeah, I can say a lot of things that are very popular are overrated. The miscommunication trope isn't bad, but a lot of times it is written poorly. This I can agree with. Absolutely. It really depends on the situation. It's very hard to write it well. Stop judging people for how little they DNF. It doesn't make you a better person reader for being on either side of that argument. Yeah, you should just don't judge people for how they read. Everybody can read however they want. There is too much Taylor Swift in contemporary romance. I haven't read any, but sure. I've definitely seen a lot marketed that way, so yeah. Slow-paced book does not equal poorly paced, but short-form content has ruined my attention span, so I can't get through a slow-paced book anymore. Wholeheartedly agree. Absolutely, yes. Yes, I agree with that statement. When you tell me it gets better around book X, you just have to get to book X and it gets better. It's not a well-written series, end of story. I also agree with that. I hate that argument. It's why I'm never going to finish Dresden Files. I read the first two and everyone keeps telling me it gets better, he gets better with his chauvinism. I'm glad he gets better with his chauvinism. I don't want to go on the journey with him. You know? Same with I'm probably DNFing the David Eddings series. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth now due to certain reasons, but also no, I'm not invested in this at all. I'm not going to continue it. People got real mad at my review of the second book because I'm like, what? And they're like, he's building. He's still building in book 2? No. Hardbacks are the worst form of book to read, and yes, that includes fancy special editions. Go wash your mouth out with soap. I'm kidding. That is a joke. I understand why. Hard books, physically holding them, it's heavy, it's awkward and stuff. I get that. I get it. I still like owning them. I don't rate books based on quality, just how much fun I had while reading and if I enjoyed them. Cool. Keep doing it. I wish more people did that, honestly. We don't have to be fully analytical about it. We can just be like, I enjoyed this. Or I didn't enjoy this. It's fine. I don't like reading romances with perfect characters physically and emotionally. I think the beautiful part of romance is non-perfect people finding their someone. And this is why I love Weather Girl. Go read Weather Girl. Please. It's imperfect people. Yeah. Sorry. I'm fine. It's also why I'm writing my ogre romance. Okay. Oh, is this our last one? This is the last one. We made it. We got there, guys. Enemies to lovers doesn't exist in contemporary romance. The love interest pissed you off? Boo-hoo. Get a grip and be so for real. Yeah, I agree. Enemies to lovers really cannot exist in contemporary romance. Rivals can. I don't think enemies. You must be enemies. Now, granted, I think the definition of enemy is being taken a little bit too literally a lot of the time when people are angry about this trope. I do think we can have our own enemy. I personally think I have a couple enemies in the world. And I'm not going to name them. I don't want them to know they're my enemy. I think there's one person on the planet who knows that he is my enemy. And I will continue to try to stop him. But anyway, yeah. I understand. And yeah, it should really just be rivals. It should be rivals. Okay, well that was a lot. That was a lot of hot takes. That wasn't even all of them. I couldn't pick them all up. You guys are spicy and I love you. Some of you I agree with, some of you I disagree with. Some of you will agree with me, some of you will disagree with me on various points, and that is okay and beautiful and why we are human, and we are all entitled to our opinions, except when it affects actual livelihoods and people being able to live, and breathe. That's when it's not an opinion anymore, and it's a problem. Okay, anyway, thanks for letting me get on my soapbox so much on this video, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this. It's been a long one. I can tell just by how many times I've had to change the battery and stop and press record. So, thanks for being here with me. And thanks, this was the first Litmas video. I filmed these all out of order, but I know it's scheduled to be the first Litmas video. So welcome to Litmas! Cool, alright. Well, I hope you guys enjoy the journey of Litmas with me. I promise not every video is going to be as long as this one, and there will all be various different content. So stick around for what you're going to have tomorrow, and I'll see you then. Bye! There's a water situation. I don't know if you guys can hear him drinking. Paul is thirsty boy. I'm normal. I had to take a hit of my Diet Coke with wine. Trying to think of what I was just saying. So, people are not better or worse readers for how quickly they read and how much they retain. That's the same opinion. We just talked about that. Is what's happening. Do you have a log on my bed again? What are you doing with my blanket? Okay. Can I get one on camera? Not as good as I wanted it to be. Come here. What's the issue? What's the issue? Who done it? Oh my goodness, I've gone through 3 batteries.